Hey everyone, welcome back to Helping Make Sense. Today I'd like to talk a little bit about net worth and income, what the difference is between the two, and why income doesn't necessarily guarantee that you'll have a high net worth. Most people think that if somebody earns a lot of money by way of their job, they must be wealthy. But income does not necessarily guarantee a very high net worth. So I want to break down what both of these mean and how you can optimize that information in your wealth building journey. Income is the money you earn, which could be from your job, a side business, investment income, anything that's coming into you in the form of money. Here's the thing to know about income. Just because you have a high income does not necessarily lead to a high net worth. For example, if you make $10,000 a month, which would mean you have a salary of $120,000 per year, that doesn't necessarily mean that you'll be a millionaire in 10, 15, 20 years because it comes back to how you spend. So if you make $10,000 a month, but you spend $9,500 a month, your what's called margin, or the difference between what you spend and what you make, is only $500. That's not very significant as far as a ratio when it comes to a $10,000 per month income. When we compare that to net worth, in its simplest form, net worth is just everything you own minus everything you owe. You may have heard of the term assets and liabilities. Assets are just things you own. So cash, stocks, a home, a car, anything to your name that is of monetary value. Liabilities, which is another term for what you owe, is just all the debts that you have, whether that's a mortgage, a student loan, credit cards, etc. So let's take an example. You may have $50,000 in investments, $20,000 in savings, and a $10,000 car loan. In this example, you would add up the $50,000 in investments plus the $20,000 in savings to have $70,000 in total assets. You then have your $10,000 car loan, which is a liability, right? You owe that money. So your net worth, using these examples, would be $60,000. To that end, income can absolutely influence your net worth. Of course, the more money you make, the more options you have, the more you're able to save, the more you may be able to borrow and spend, but it can be a little bit misleading. Again, going back to the example in the beginning of the video, someone could make perhaps $20,000 a month. But again, if they spend $20,000 of that, none of it is adding into their net worth, so that is not growing. In fact, people can have negative net worths. If they have, let's say, $20,000 in a savings account and $25,000 in investments, so let's say that's $45,000 worth of assets, but they might have $100,000 in student loans, well, that is subtracted because they owe that. You take what they own, which is a total of $45,000, minus what they owe, $100,000 in loans, and their net worth actually would come out to negative $55,000 because they owe more than they own. To differentiate the two a little bit here, and I want to encourage you to think of how this would apply to your scenario. Income determines your lifestyle. Net worth determines your long-term financial freedom. For example, if somebody makes $60,000 a year but saves and invests consistently $7,000 to $10,000 of that, could and will have a higher net worth than someone who makes $200,000 a year and spends, let's say, $200,000 a year, right? They spend everything that they make. So because the savings rate for the person with the lower income is higher, their net worth, especially as we repeat this pattern over time, will be higher than the person who makes more than triple what they do but spends everything that they make. So income, while it's much more tangible, and a lot of people probably have a pretty good sense of their monthly or annual income, it's just temporary. If you have a lavish lifestyle that you spend everything you make, you're not going to be able to build your net worth. Whereas net worth reflects more of a long-term indicator as to what you've done with your money and assets over time. namely invested, saved, and grown your assets to therefore increase your total net worth. When it comes to financial freedom, wanting to retire, net worth is going to be your main indicator as to how feasible that is. It shows how much you've saved, your progress, your resilience, can you handle emergencies. So net worth becomes, in general, a pretty strong indicator as to your overall financial picture, particularly over time and into the future. So just remember, as you're trying to increase your net worth and better yourself and your future by ensuring your financial stability, you want to focus on growing your net worth. You look around and you might see the person with a super nice house or the luxury cars or lifestyle, which is great, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they have a high net worth. In fact, I would think that if I see somebody with very expensive, let's call them toys, their net worth is probably not as high because it's clear that they have to spend on that luxurious lifestyle. So it's not always a matter of increasing your income to get to this next level of financial freedom. It's a matter of increasing the margin, what you're saving, and cutting down what you're spending so that you can use that difference to save and invest and increase your net worth over time. So again, when it comes to your income, you want to know the numbers. I did do a video about budgeting. Feel free to check that out so that you can assign all the dollars that you earn appropriately. And some of those dollars should be put into savings accounts, investments, and so on, so that your net worth is building over time at a much more exponential rate than your income may be, again, depending on your job, your lifestyle, your family setup, etc. Both of these numbers, income and net worth, are very good numbers to know for your day-to-day financial health and wealth. Income, the money you make in a year, should be budgeted appropriately and put towards investments so that you can grow net worth, which is again just what you own minus what you owe. Please remember that having a high income does not mean people also have a high net worth. And having a high net worth is achievable for everybody over time if you live below your means, invest properly, and have a good sense of discipline as it relates to personal finance so that your net worth can increase to a level that come retirement, you're comfortable and you can afford whatever you want within your lifestyle. So just to wrap up, income, which is the money that you earn in a given year, can contribute to your net worth by increasing what you own and hopefully lessening what you owe in the form of debts and mortgages and so on. Ultimately, net worth will be the true determinant over time as to your financial freedom. So having a high income does not mean you'll also have a high net worth. Of course, it can mean that if you have a high income, it's generally easier to increase your net worth more rapidly. But just because you don't make a six-figure income, for example, doesn't mean you can't also build your net worth over time. Hopefully the difference between income and net worth makes sense. If it doesn't, let me know in the comments. I'll try to clarify. Over time, the metric that you should really focus on as it relates to sustained financial freedom would be net worth. Hopefully this was helpful. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.